Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table.
Hi, and welcome back to my craft table. I have a really fun card for you today. I'm using some fabulous stamps and dies from My Favorite Things. I'm starting out by trimming my brown cardstock down to 5.5 by 4.25. I'm going to be using one of my favorite embossing folders, and it's from We Are Memory Keepers. This one embosses a really thin chevron pattern into the paper. Embossing folders are a lot of fun to use. They provide a lot of texture and interest to your card. For my next layer, I'm going to create a frame using 2 rounded edge rectangular dies. These dies have the faux stitching on the inside as well as the outside. I'm using the smaller of the 2 dies to cut out a piece of white cardstock, which I'm using as the background scene for my little forest I'm creating. I'm using my blending tool to put down some dye ink here. I have my lily pad color, and next I'm moving on to my Caribbean coast. I'm only covering the edges with my ink because the middle part's going to be covered up with my trees. I'm using the Forest Friend stamp set from My Favorite Things. This stamp set has a lot of cute animal images in it and a lot of great sentiments. However, my favorite thing in this set is the sentiment, "May the forest be with you." This sentiment is what I'm creating this card around. My family and I are huge Star Wars fans, especially my son. He goes around the house all day humming the Star Wars music. I'm coloring in the fox image with orange-colored pencils, and then for the darker shadows I'm using some reds. I'm keeping it pretty simple. I'm using a light brown for his nose. For the sides of his face and his belly, I'm using a cold gray pencil. I have all of the colored pencils that I used listed on my blog. The little birds that I'm coloring in didn't come with this set. It came with a set I used in a previous video. It's a banner and wreath set from Avery Elle. I only end up using one of the birds for my card. I was glad that I had the coordinating dies for these images. When they're small like that, it's hard to fussy cut them out, at least for me. I'm using some micropore tape to keep the dies in place while I run them through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. These dies leave a small border around the images. Now I'm ready to cut out my little forest. I'm using some colored cardstock and pattern paper for the trees. These dies leave a faux stitching around the leaves of the trees. I'm a big fan of the faux stitching. This is a newer die set from My Favorite Things. I had my eye on it and it went out of stock pretty fast. So when it was back in stock, I just had to get it. I'm stamping my sentiment onto a piece of white cardstock and then I'm trimming that down. Now it's time to assemble my card. I'm going to attach my orange frame first. Because of the textured background that I'm going to be adhering my pieces to, I'm going to use a generous amount of tape from my Tombow tape runner. The next piece I'm putting down is my sky and grass background. Now I get to add my trees and animal images. I'm using my multi-medium mat to glue on the trunks. The thin nozzle that I put on my glue bottle really helps to glue down small die cuts like these tree trunks. However, most of the time I use my fingers to apply the glue. For some reason I have to press really hard to get the glue to flow through the nozzle. But I made it work here. To glue the trees onto the card, I'm just using my Tombow tape runner again. I'm not worrying about gluing the trunks down to the card because they're going to be covered up with my sentiment and my fox. For my sentiment, I'm cutting one of the edges into a banner shape. I cut a slit down the center of the paper, and then I cut each corner up to the slit. Now I can glue it down onto my card. I'm using mounting squares on the back of my fox and my bird to add a little bit more interest and dimension to my card. I had a lot of fun playing with this stamp set, and so did my kids. They asked me to stamp out the images of all the different animals onto some white cardstock so that they could color them in. For a final touch, I'm adding some pretty pink posh sequins called peacock feathers, and I'm using my multimedia matte glue to glue those down as well. If you're interested in any of the supplies that I used to make this card, I have them listed on my blog. Thanks for watching, and please give me a thumbs up if you liked this card. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to be notified when I create more cards. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye!